Let's talk about a young lady that's in high school right now. And man, she's a point guard. She's averaging 15 and 8. What are some things that you would recommend her to do? Like,
First, you have to show who you are. Your personality is really important, it is, especially when it comes to social media.
see, the vision began with you, and then now you recently just signed Gloria.
Gloria Muzito is Paris 2024 Olympian, very much an athlete at an elite level.
The WNBA, they recently they're getting paid. The women's basketball players.
This is an interesting point. I'm really glad you brought up the WNBA. The conservative pundits, WNBA is a waste of time. You know why they think it's a waste of time? Because they say that it'll never be as profitable as the NBA. And I think they might be right. Can women's sports, can women's basketball really compete? We're talking about just bottom line with the NBA. Probably not. It'll be very, very difficult. But that doesn't mean that the WNBA is a meaningless cost center. Why does it make sense for a large profitable entity to subsidize a non-profitable entity? And the answer to that is business, is because a lot of times that non-profitable entity is providing a lot of great marketing for the profitable entity. Basically, and I'll take it to a business example. Haagen-Dazs, okay? Haagen-Dazs is an American company. Obviously, they have a worldwide brand. They have locations everywhere. You know what is one of their least profitable locations in the world? Champs-Élysées in France, okay? The reason why it's so unprofitable, it's because to afford the rent in Champs-Élysées, it's astronomical. But yet Champs-Élysées has no problem keeping tenants across in that street.
Yeah.
Why? Marketing. Because that company understands that even because it's not profitable, it has a strong marketing purpose. So this is what the conservative pundits are not getting, because to them everything is capitalistic, profit, bottom line, right? Look at the WNBA. You can't just purely appreciate it from a profit standpoint, from a bottom line standpoint. You have to appreciate it from what else is it doing for the league that without it, we wouldn't be able to achieve. And honestly, what I've seen is that because women are more tapped into women's sports, they're also more tapped into men's sports. So this directly benefits the NBA.
You just talk about failures. I mean, it's not gonna be.
I failed a lot. Okay, don't get me wrong. I continue to
Please
fail.
open up, because you're a seasoned lawyer. I mean, I would assume all the deals that you made, they weren't just like, oh, Carlos is gonna figure it out, and then everything. There's no way. I think through failure, that's when you learn to, okay, now we'll navigate this way, because through those failures, you were learning something at that time.
God, you know what the beautiful thing is that, so this is I think I can't remember the exact name of the company. It could be Amazon or it could be Snapchat. But this is, again, a very tech thing. On your first day on the job, they give you like an impossible task. And they give you the impossible task because they want you to fail from the gates. Why? Because many times with risk aversion, you're trying to play this perfect game that is impossible to play for the sustainable long term. Nobody can. Everybody's going to make a mistake. So some of these companies are thinking, let's just get them to fail, get them comfortable with the idea of failing, and then having them proceed forward and seeing, what it is that they can do for the company. The beauty about failing is that once you failed, you develop a nonchalantness, that, yeah, I failed. I'm still here. I'm going to go and do what's next. And a lot of times that failure really sets you back. But the matter is that the fact is that you're still here. Like there are times in life that it's going to be a fatal mistake. It's going to cost you a lot, and it could cost you, not to get too involved with that conversation, but it could cost you your family. It could cost you your life. But for the most part, a lot of the problems that I deal with, they're not at that level. So it also gives you perspective of, it's okay if I didn't fail. And then I think back about those other places, those times that didn't go the way I wanted them to go, and how I'm still here. I'm here. I'm enjoying my life to the best of my abilities with what I have. So it just gives you a different mindset. But I know a lot of people that, God, failure is something that they can't possibly tolerate. And I understand it. But I also see it as a very risk-averse mindset.
So Apple, Snapchat, these companies, from the get-go, they set you up.
They want you to fail.
To fail
in the first day.
But it relieves pressure off of you.
That's the whole point.
Okay, so with that being said, in the studio today is Carlos Eduardo Julca, the visionary behind Cejdeals. Carlos has built a career on high-stakes deal making, but his true passion lies in protecting and elevating the next generation of talent. Whether he's managing international Olympic hopefuls or brokering major partnerships, Carlos brings a level of discernment and strategy that is changing the game for athletes everywhere. With that being said, y'all, you talked about failure, relieving yourself from all that stress, that pressure. You know, I think that's a lot of times when we decide to start a company, a brand. You know, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves at the very get-go, but because we want to succeed right away, we want everything to go according to plan. So can you talk to me about just, you know, conviction in driving a mission?
Yeah. In San Francisco, where I was living, I lived I'm a South Floridian, but I lived in San Francisco for a few years. I want to say this was 6 or 7 years ago. I met the CEO of Thumbtack. His name is Marco Zappacosta, and he came to an event. It was this thing hosted by Jason Calacanis, who's a very, very famous angel investor out there in Silicon Valley. And I think it was called his show was called This Week in Startups, and you would go and just be in a conference room, and he'd have a CEO and come and talk about how they built their company and whatever. I stuck around, and I got to meet Marco, and and I just asked him, what is the most important thing in making a startup successful? And he said, conviction. And it always stuck with me. Like at that time, it seemed like, okay, I guess this guy really didn't want to talk to me.
Oh my!
But
was this the body language or something?
No, he was actually very firm and he was very nice. But I was like, I was hoping to get something else, like some other type of secret sauce, But it was conviction. I came away with conviction. Now that I've started doing this, Cejdeals thing, I really understand what he meant by conviction. Conviction is what makes you show up consistently. You don't think that there haven't been failures here in what I've been trying to do for the past year and a half. There have been. There are disappointments. There's been flops. There's been people that we've been close to signing that at the end of the day couldn't sign them for whatever reason. Like they have their own reasons for not signing our talent management agency agreement. Those always sting because with each talent that I sign, I make this project greater, bigger, more meaningful, and sometimes you're just stuck at an X number of clients. But him saying conviction really, really resonates now because when you believe what you're doing is the right path, and you're going in the right path, that's all the direction that you need. And it's going to make you show up. It's going to make you tolerate failure. It's going to make you creative. It's going to make you want to be out there and connecting with the people that you need to be connecting with. And it's going to make you not want to give up. That's what he meant by conviction. And I didn't understand it at the time, but now I do.
Wow. So, I mean, and that goes back to when exactly?
That was 2018 or 2019.
2018.
San Francisco.
Wow, okay. So yeah, I mean, but so you're currently still on this journey of building a business, and then now you can go back and recall those conversations you had with high-profile CEOs.
Actually, at the time he was becoming high-profile, but it was just the other night I was sitting on the couch watching CNN, and I saw his commercial for Thumbtack come up, and I'm like, well, this guy's probably getting close to being a billionaire now because he's gonna get bought out, and somebody's probably gonna either somebody's gonna acquire him or he's gonna take that company into the capital markets. They're gonna go public. So it's either gonna be one of the two. And that he gave me that piece of advice. It's like, it was just 2 nights ago when I saw his commercial for Thumbtack on CNN. It was at night, and it made me think thank you for the advice.
Yeah, I mean that's some great advice. I mean, because at the time you were searching for a different answer, but that was the answer at the time. I
didn't have a project at the time. It was just, I was just doing something else. I was working for a large tech company, working in mergers and acquisitions. You're doing that thing. I'm very locked in, but I'm also very interested in, I've always been very interested in, I would say investing, whether it be companies, and what ultimately what I've done is like angel investing in people. So it's some type of social entrepreneurial endeavor,
Yes.
really, compared to your regular entrepreneur. Um, the focus, like I've said, I've repeated many times to the team, is not focusing on profit right now. We're focusing on purpose. We have to find utility in what it is that we do. If we can't find utility, we will never be profitable. So in order to find utility, sometimes your bottom line is going to suffer. And a lot of what we do is self-funded. It's just until the day that the talent becomes known, so that deals are coming easily. We have a steady pipeline of deals coming to our clients. It's honestly it's just one of those stages where we're going to be in the red for a while, and that's okay. That's part of the process.
Conviction. Yeah. I mean, that word, you talk about belief in what it is that you're doing, what it is that I'm doing. It's the right way. Things will come up. Things fail all the time. But then you also have your successes down the line that starts to,
Yeah.
allow you to see that this mission is true. And we continue to believe and convict ourselves that we're doing what it is. We find utility in what it is that we do. So can you just talk to me about, like, okay, Cejdeals obviously initially started with you. If you would like, please go back into just, the viewership, eclipsing NCA, Caitlin Clark, the whole thing, and when that idea came to your head. But, you talk about, and then, later down the line, I come from Indianapolis, Indiana. We got Caitlin Clark now, and, the Fever. Shout out to Fever. You know what I mean? So, but can you just talk to me about how, obviously the vision began with you, Cejdeals, and then now you recently just signed Gloria. Um, can you just talk to me about how you being the visionary and then now signing this talent of Gloria, how do you continue to build Sedge from where you began to now? Like, how do you see it continue to scale?
Yeah, I'm for those watching, Gloria Muzito is a Paris 2024 Olympian, um, very much an athlete at an elite level. She continues to compete. She's athletically, she's growing immensely. There's a lot of, I would say, there's, we hope for the best, right? We want our clients to be happy, to be able to compete at the highest level, with us taking care of a lot of things in the background. That's Gloria. And humble pie. I mean, she is probably, for the talent that she has, as humble as a human can get. But those are breaks that you get here and there just because you keep going, right? This is I at another event I met another entrepreneur who his company is athletic wear, and the name of the company is Keep Going Athletics, and we were connecting, and he gifted me this water bottle that I take with me to the gym all the time, and it just says KGA, Keep Going, like Keep Going Athletics.
I like that.
And God, it's just a constant reminder. You just have to just keep going. Like this is part of the problem with social media today, and this culture of instant fame.
Oh, we need the instant gratification.
They need the instant gratification that, whatever it is you're doing, the instant validation that it's the right thing, right? And everybody thinks like, oh, well, I thought of something. Now, tomorrow it has to be successful, right? And that's not how it works. There are so many stories about people who come up with things and they don't see any fruit of the labor for years, if not decades, okay? I mean, so I can think of one right now, and it's one of my favorite ones actually. It's her name is EJ, Korean. What is the K-pop Demon Hunters?
K-pop, okay.
I mean, that blew up in last year, 2025.
Yeah, it's getting big now.
It was, I think, one of the biggest movies that Netflix produced. And look, this girl has been hustling for like 25 years. And her dream was to be a K-pop star, and nobody would give her a chance. And then she just kept at it, just kept at it, just kept at it, just kept showing up, just kept showing up, just kept showing up. And then all of this just happened essentially. It seems like it happened overnight, like her fame was instant overnight, but that's not the case. She's been interviewed many times, and she's talked about how many times she's wanted to quit. Now, I'm sure like I'm gonna come to some point where people are gonna ask me, well, maybe this isn't catching on. Do you want to quit? The answer is, as long as I'm having fun, I'm not going to quit.
There we go.
Because it's been a lot of fun to meet the people that I've met, the doors that it has opened, the social interactions that I get to have, the side conversations that I get to have because of this project. Because I think there is an innate curiosity in what it is that we are doing, and an innate utility that it's almost like, God, I know somebody who can use that. Because now social media is so widespread. So as long as I'm having fun, I'm going to keep doing this. And I've said this from the beginning. Once it stops being fun, then yeah, I'll consider stepping away from it. But the point is, like, hopefully, it's not only just to build a successful company, but to build an amazing ecosystem where people can come into it. And it really is a community of people who are trying to achieve the same thing, which is more than likely adequate compensation for what they can do from a marketing standpoint. That's the mission, really. And building the community is the fun part. Building the company is the harder part. Building the community is the fun part.
Yeah, so Carlos, y'all, he's definitely been having fun, y'all, because when I first came here, you know what I mean, you recently just joined the community where you're doing hot yoga or Pilates. Yeah, but you know what I mean? And so y'all gotta please connect with Cejdeals on Instagram. We'll, add that to the lower third here. But you've been having fun. Yeah, I saw you recently did the whole 100 classes, was it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, he's having fun out here. He's building a community. Not only that, he's empowering women. I'm seeing it, because I came from Indianapolis. And, I was doing, I do my own video production, you guys. And, I've come to community events where I'll just film young ladies and, just put those quick highlights on YouTube for them to. But, sometimes there's times where, I'm like, oh, okay. Their counterparts, the males, they just have more access, more resources to certain things. But, that's when I come in and, if I can just put a quick highlight tape, empower them, make them have something to look back upon, it's a lot. But, you talked about the K-pop artist and she just blew up.
It seems, right? But she really put in a lot of work. Like, it was essentially two I want to say 25 years worth of work. Just people don't see it. They don't see it because they want to focus in on the overnight success. That's unfortunately also the downside of social media.
But I would say her story, and I know there's plenty of stories out there where, entrepreneurs, they stayed down and kept grinding and figured out one day after the other, one step. And so can you ask me, why does her story, does it particularly resonate with you and Cejdeals, just staying down and continue to grind and continue to stay convicted in your mission?
Yeah, I actually think that this is going to take a long time to build. For it to be successful, I don't see it being successful. Obviously, when the first year and a half, we've made great strides, but there's a long way to go. And I think it's a constant reminder of, I think if I hang in there long enough, it'll be okay. It'll work. But if I go into thinking geez, where's my paycheck a year and a half from now, then I'm probably going to come away a very unhappy customer, very unsatisfied. So it's more to put it into perspective of that. I mean, and that's one example in the artistic world. There's many examples in the tech world. We can sit here and talk about hours of how, and let's just talk about one for the sake of talking about it. Okay.
Right.
NVIDIA is right now, what is it? A $3-4 trillion company, the highest market cap, the most valuable company. Okay. The most valuable company in the world. And everybody wants to think that, oh God, artificial intelligence and NVIDIA, it's been happening for 3 or 4 years. These guys started with developing video games in, what was it, the mid-90s at some NVIDIA, Wendy's in San Jose. That's how they started. It took them 30 years to get to a $3 or $4 trillion market cap. It didn't happen overnight. But again, people will want to focus on whatever it is that they want to focus. And instant fame is, it's a vice. What can I say?
Yeah, I like that. But yeah, can you talk to me about just because we focus a lot on just we got the NFL, NBA, MLB, but they're it's all male dominated. But now you talk about the WNBA PA. They recently they're getting paid, the women's basketball players.
This is an interesting point. I'm really glad you brought up the WNBA. There, and I'll just go ahead and put it out there. The conservative pundits are basically saying that WNBA is a waste of time. You know why they think it's a waste of time? Because they say that it'll never be as profitable as the NBA, and I think they might be right. I can women's sports can women's basketball really compete? We were talking about just bottom line with the NBA. Probably not. It'll be very, very difficult, right, for the WNBA to one day out profit the NBA. Very difficult. That doesn't mean that the WNBA is a waste of time, or that doesn't mean that the WNBA is a meaningless cost center. So I think what a lot of people don't understand is that when you operate a business, okay, and the NBA is a business, it's an organization that is, if you were to look at it from an organizational standpoint, the NBA would be the owner of a lot of other entities underneath it, and the WNBA happens to be one of them. The WNBA is subsidized by the NBA.
Yes.
Okay, so why does it make sense for a large profitable entity to subsidize a non-profitable entity? And the answer to that is in general in business is because a lot of times that non-profitable entity is providing a lot of great marketing for the profitable entity. So this is just a business decision. Okay, so basically, and I'll take it to a business example, Haagen-Dazs, okay? Haagen-Dazs is an American company. Obviously, they have a worldwide brand. They have locations everywhere. You know what is one of their least profitable locations in the world? Champs-Élysées in France, okay? The reason why it's so unprofitable, it's because to afford the rent in Champs-Élysées, it's astronomical. But yet Champs-Élysées has no problem keeping tenants across in that street.
Yeah.
Why? Marketing. Because that company understands that even because it's not profitable, it has a strong marketing purpose. So this is what the conservative pundits are not getting, because to them everything is capitalistic, profit, bottom line, right? So when you look at the WNBA, you can't just purely appreciate it from a profit standpoint, from a bottom line standpoint. You have to appreciate it from what else is it doing for the league that without it we wouldn't be able to achieve. And honestly, what I've seen is that because women are more tapped into women's sports, they're also more tapped into men's sports. So this directly benefits the NBA. This is just the economics. It's almost like dripping. It's supposed to be dripped down or trickled down, but sometimes it trickles up too, which from a physics standpoint doesn't make sense, but it does happen because there's interest in women's sports. Sometimes there's interest now in the men's sports. But the greater argument for keeping the WNBA, for the NBA to continue to subsidize the WNBA, is that without the WNBA, where does the talent go? Where does the talent from a collegiate athletics go? Because if there is no WNBA, unless we have somebody decides to privately fund some private league out there, that talent is going to go without a platform, without a place where they can display their skills, and from where they can earn their ad revenues, their advertising contracts. So to me, it's a beautiful thing that we have the WNBA, even if it's not profitable for the NBA. Why? Because it provides a platform for women to come into and for them to be adequately paid for their skills, their athletic skills, which they rightfully deserve. This is something that if you're just focusing on profitability and the bottom line, you're going to completely miss.
Man, I like what you said, because you said if you focus on the profitability, so if anything, I really liked your analogy with the Haagen-Dazs, and I'm glad you opened with that because
Yeah.
it really allows me to get more insight on how the
It
WNBA
usually
plays
works.
a part.
Yeah, it usually works. It's one of those things that I didn't appreciate. I was working General Mills a long time ago was a client of mine, and they had I think at the time they owned Haagen-Dazs or they were about to buy Haagen-Dazs, something to that extent, and that's where I came to know about some of their business operations, the Haagen-Dazs business operations, and how they are profitable in some places, not profitable in some places, but only because being not profitable doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, because overall you can be profitable. So same goes with the NBA. Many entities, some of them will be a hit, some of them will not, but doesn't mean that they don't have a purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I like the compatibility. I think they're compatible with it. You know what I mean? The WNBA and NBA, how they kind of play off of each other. Even with that said, like, what I really admire about the growth of the WNBA is just, man, they're not gonna say no. They're gonna go and they're gonna play ball and they're gonna show you they're just as good. And so, really, what I'm alluding to is the passion. Cause I'm watching you, Carlos, and I just saw how passionate you got about just wanting to. Anyway, with that being said, man, can you just
Well, it irritates me when people think it's black and white. It's not. You see many times it's gray, and you have to be able to appreciate being in the gray, because if you're looking for a black and white answer, you're probably not gonna find it. And a lot of things right now with women's sports, they're not gonna make any sense, but it doesn't mean that they're not worth the time.
So with that being said, I think it'd be the right time to talk about like gender stereotypes because, right, like we just automatically just assume like like men's sports, they're the best, you know what I mean? But I mean, at least from my standpoint, I'm seeing the growth in women's sports from even basketball to even soccer. So can we talk about like just gender stereotypes and how does that play a part in Cejdeals? Like, what does that look like?
Let's talk. Yeah, sure. Biggest stereotype that I'm seeing. Okay. And it starts with men around my age. Okay, where we think that, well, we take care of the bills. That's good enough, right? We don't have to care about our health anymore. Like, let's forget about our health. Let's forget about as long as we're paying the bills, and that's taken care of. That's good enough.
That's the man's job.
That's
right
the
there.
man's job. That's good enough for the house, right?
All is done.
Like, if I happen to spend, a little bit of time with my kids, fantastic. If I happen to exercise once a week, super dad now, right? It's not good enough. That's not good enough. As men, we need to uphold ourselves to a greater standard. Why? We're upholding the women to a greater standard, right? Women, we expect women to be a mom. We expect them to go to Pilates class. This is actually an actual thing that I saw on Instagram that I want to talk about. Some dude was just talking about how, well, if the girl goes to Pilates, you got to wife her because that means she's wholesome. And I'm like, dude, why don't you go to Pilates? Like, because you don't look too great in shape. Okay, so that's one. And then on top of that, we also there's some expectation for them to pay the bills. So then they got to do all these things. We only got to do one.
Right.
Where's the balance, right? The point is that in my critique of men, especially when they start hitting my age, we get lazy or we get complacent or one of those things, because it's almost like we have this bar. This is good enough. That's it. Don't bother me about the rest. As long as the money's there, that's good enough.
Bottom line.
Bottom line. It's not. If you really want to optimize yourself, I think it requires a lot more work, a lot more effort, a lot more passion. And a lot of times we just rather sit around the TV and watch sports with the boys.
And if anything, Carlos, I think that's why I could see why, because you like to challenge yourselves. You put yourself, you talked about Cejdeals. It allowed you to build the community outside, you being a lawyer full time, Cejdeals allows you to tap into the community, see what's going on in the community. But you're not just hitting, okay, I'm a lawyer, I'm done, I'm paying the bills. You're the guy, man. You're the guy, and I want to continue to help you and elevate, because what I'm seeing now is, you attend to these classes. 100 classes showing up now. and they celebrated you, congratulated you, and that was empowering to see for myself. But can you also just talk about like, cause you're would you be Gen X, millennial?
I'm like in somewhere like in that line between millennial and Gen X actually.
Okay, so in that line, okay.
Like I think
Well, y'all built all this technology we own, man. That's your
I
generation.
think you're Gen X.
I'm Gen Z.
You're Gen Z. So
I'm
sorry,
Gen
I'm
Z.
between millennial and Gen Z.
Okay,
So
so you're in
I'm
between.
between millennial and Gen Z. Yeah.
Yeah, so I asked that because even my generation, like, there's this clash. We talking about stereotypes, and are we paying the bills 50-50? Like, I don't know. It's interesting now to see just how roles are being played out in society now. But I'm with you, man. I think we need to challenge ourselves, and here I have you on a podcast. Because I don't think just paying the bills is enough for men anymore. We should continue to stay in shape, stay healthy, and challenge our counterparts. But at the same time, I think while we're here, we want to empower women athletes because this is the perfect time. We got NIL deals evolving, and so can you talk to me about just not only sports related, but influencers, so to say, because there are other opportunities out there social media wise, not even from just a business, a sports related standpoint. So can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's different types of influencers, right? And we're talking about broad representation. It's something that I came to. I mean, from the moment I started this, I knew that we can't just say representation for some and then the rest kind of like let's judge them and out of the framework.
Yeah.
And directly, I'm talking about the OnlyFans world that exists in Miami. Working in downtown Miami, I see it. It's very obvious that there's a rising economy, especially within Miami, where a lot of and it's a lot of them are women. I would say they have a lot of paying customers, I guess, online. Um, they have acquisitive power. I've seen them. They have direction and they have free time on their hands to do a lot of other things. So it's almost like an economy that exists, but we want to pretend like it doesn't exist. And then as a result, what I see, what ends up happening is that they end up just not managing whatever opportunities come their way the best, or they end up aligning with the wrong people. I think in order for me to do this right, I'm not saying I'm gonna go and represent now influencers that are OnlyFans. I'm not getting there. But what I'm saying is that you really have to have an open mind to understand that those folks also need some level of representation, and it's already happening. Some of them actually, their general counsel for OnlyFans, he recently left Skadden Arps. Skadden Arps is probably one of the largest firms, one of the largest law firms in the world, one of the most powerful. And he left to be their general counsel, right? Who are we to judge this guy for going over and becoming the GC of OnlyFans? Who am I to judge an OnlyFans influencer, a worker, for what it is that they do in their spare time? I can't. In order to really do this right, you got to come into it with an absolutely open mind, which is very difficult to have, considering that both you and I know that there are very many dark things that are happening on that side of the wall that probably you and I don't even want to know about. But the truth is, like the backdrop also is, if you don't get involved, if you don't try to help out or try to provide some level of resources or guidance, are they worse off? And it's a dilemma that at some point, hopefully, as this agency grows, I may have to grapple with. But it's something that I already see. It's right there for the taking, especially considering we're in South Florida. It's almost an untapped client base that at some point I'll have to decide whether it will be served by this agency or not.
Yeah, I'm glad that you have an open mind. There's a saying, your mind only works when your mind is like a parachute, it only works when it's open. And so, I'm glad because, like you said, you and I both know there's some dark things, but at the same time, as I continue to just challenge myself and grow as an individual, one of those things is like, sometimes I like to shy away from the dark, the ugly, but sometimes that's how you get the entire picture of what's really going on. And how how they just impact each other, whether indirectly or directly, if that makes sense. But I say that to say is like, um, you know, since being down here in South Florida, one day I'm just at Deerfield Beach. I'm going out for a run, and then I don't know. I'm just really high, outgoing person. Just say hi to this lady. She's just having a good time. I was like, man, you look like you're just enjoying yourself, having a great blast, and just like, yeah, I'm actually streaming. I got my vlog camera
Yeah,
sometimes, so
exactly.
I,
Streaming to who?
yeah, it's man streaming to who?
Yeah.
That was a story, but I mean, her story, like you said, who am I to judge the guy becoming an OnlyFans? Going to OnlyFans and managing that. Who am I to judge? And so, just kind of learning her story, right? And just kind of like, she worked in Atlanta. She moved down to South Beach recently, but she was doing project management in Atlanta. Mind you, she has a degree from Harvard in psychology. And then I was like, oh, okay, so you use your psychology. And then I'm like, oh, okay, now you're at the beach, just kind of filming yourself, chilling, having a great time. And so that was just an interesting story nonetheless. But I can see how because she also is an influencer herself. And,
They're influencers in their own right.
in their own right.
It's like, the truth is that I mean, I've had approximations to this world by being in downtown Miami and in that scene. And it's like a full-time job. It's almost like a full-time job.
Yeah, but can we talk about, man, just like digital, because everything's going digital, right? I mean, how these companies are wanting to get access to talent to market their products, services, and so on and so forth. But can you talk about like what is it that exactly agents or talent, maybe these influencers, should be doing to, like, if they're seeking to partner up with a brand, like what are the things that you think they should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, the baseline always is, what's your follower count, right? So that's like the starting point. Anybody who really wants to go into building an NIL brand has to start with posting a lot of content so that they can up their follower count. That's number one. I would say then the next one is being able to display certain skills that they can market a product. And a lot of them will,
Yeah.
even if you don't have a deal, doesn't mean you can market a product. It's you have to get your training wheels somewhere. So it's you'll see a lot of them. They'll review a restaurant, they'll review some type of outfit that they bought. They'll post something that starts gathering attention from the brands, enough so that maybe every now and then one will reach out and will say, well, we can send you something, can you make a video about it? That's part of their marketing cost. That's part of the brand's marketing cost. And then last but not least, once you've done that a few times, you have to push the brands to give you deals, because they're not necessarily going to come and say, well, now we want to pay you to do our advertising. It's not how it works. And this is part of what I've been working with some clients, to get them to that point so that they feel comfortable asking for compensation, because some of them don't. They believe that they have to continue this model of like, well, maybe one day they'll bring it up, and it's like, no, we have to bring it up. We have to. We are going to turn the tables and ask and see if it makes sense for you to continue to market this brand. And if not, that's okay. There are other brands out there. But I think a lot of times when you're young and you don't have that level of confidence or backbone yet developed, part of you wants to stay in this relationship that isn't serving you or your best interest.
Yeah, imposter syndrome starts to, these things start to come up, and yeah, but how do you avoid staying in that loop, that cycle of not, like you said, not serving yourself? With that said, like, we in this digital era, I just want to address like an influencer or an athlete that's coming up, and they have the skill set, the social skills to just get in front of the camera and start marketing services. But then, maybe let's talk about a young lady that's in high school right now. And man, she's a point guard. She's averaging 15 and 8. What are some things that you would recommend her to do? Like you said, go out shopping, and what would she do?
Um, Probably, honestly, first you have to show who you are. Your personality is really important. It is, especially when it comes to social media. You being able to just be relatable is really, really important. What I've noticed is that a lot of people like to be taken on a journey. So let's say this is a basketball player who goes to a lot of competitions. Well, why not document one of those competitions? Because people are interested in going on that journey with you. They're also interested, specifically with athletes, they're interested in knowing how they train, how they eat, what they wear. So all of these little things are, before we know it, there's like a laundry list of things that you can do in order to improve your social media presence. But it takes time to do all of those things. But those are just some general suggestions of what I would suggest to somebody who is an athlete who start making wants to start making an appearance, who wants to start changing their perspective as a legitimate brand influencer.
I see. Yeah, I mean, it's taking. I mean, social media is taking the world by storm. I mean, in a short amount of time. I mean, we used to get commercials, just on the TV.
Yeah, now we're bombarded every time you open your phone.
And so, high schoolers today, I mean, they're getting big, huge. I mean, now college athletes are getting NIL deals. That wasn't a thing 5 years ago. I mean,
and a lot of the male athletes are going to get the big deals, right? A lot of what we're working on is the little deals, the micro deals, is what I like to call the micro deals. When you have a large book of clients, those micro deals will add up. With one or two clients, it's not going to make much of an impact from a profit or bottom line perspective. Once you're representing 100, 150, a lot of them have little deals coming their way, it adds up. It's a volume-based. I would say that Cejdeals, ultimately, in order for it to be successful, it has to be a volume-based business, because those little deals are going to add up. One or two not going to make a difference, but you give it time, and that momentum, they just keep coming, and you're essentially at some point collecting a small commission. I think it's at this point we have it at 5% for every closed deal. It adds up.
Yeah, I think it's a large opportunity today with, I mean, these platforms, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. I mean, just to put yourself out there, build your personal brand, share what it is that you're doing, be relatable. Because I grew up, man, I played sports, and you just didn't have the opportunity to just, okay, if I got done, at my football game, to just record it, or maybe I had my father filming the event and then sharing it on YouTube.
Oh yeah, no, that wasn't not in my time. YouTube didn't in high school. What was it? No, YouTube was in its very, very early days. So, like very, very early days.
Yeah, because the more I continue to even build my own production company and leverage these social platforms myself, get visionary founder like yourself on these platforms, I get to learn more about the analytics and what people are actually interested in. And I think we're really at this era where, this mainstream, okay, let's get we saw America be, the USA basketball team be good at just dominate sports. But now you're starting to see Serbia, the world's competing, and the world is starting to wake up and starting to realize the power that, they have themselves.
Yeah, I mean, who just won that World Baseball Classic, right? Venezuela. I mean, that was.
It's a lot going on in those.
And the U.S. hasn't won that tournament, I think, in like 8 years or something like that.
Yeah,
that was the last, and I think they've only won once since that tournament has been hosted, once or twice. And I think they started hosting it in I want to say, late 90s or early 2000s. You would think like baseball, the U.S. would dominate every competition, right?
Not the case.
Not the case.
And that's where I'm getting at with this, is because, like, we have this opportunity with all these platforms. I mean, for anyone to leverage these platforms. We haven't won this competition for about the past 8 years. I would like to see, a film made about that, the storytelling about how, other countries are impacting, dominating. I think, we're at this point where the lens is starting to shift, because now it becomes more of the storyteller. Who's telling the story now? That person has a lot more power today, especially with these platforms. And so, I look at these influencers, these athletes coming up, and they don't have to necessarily wait for Nike to reach out. They can kind of go to the Nike store and with their community already having a large following.
They can totally do it.
Do you know what I mean?
They can and Nike will totally have the conversation with them, even if they are not represented by some major like talent management agency. They're willing to have it if you have the numbers. Like it's
it's a numbers game.
They want to connect with them, but it's a matter of sometimes I feel like there's an imposter syndrome. Like you can't really do it for whatever reason. It takes a little bit of hustling, obviously, and that's part of what we do, to hustle for our clients so that they can just focus on the content creation, right? Ultimately, what we really want to do is, aside from landing deals, like I said, is just build a community. For those of you that are out there listening to this podcast and you think that the type of community that we're talking about would suit your interest, connect with me, connect with us, because it's going to. The point is that you're not in this alone. There's other people that want to navigate this process with you, and it doesn't mean signing an agreement, a talent management agency agreement with us. It's just having us as a resource. Look, I know plenty of people right now that I'm advising on doing this and doing that, and they're not necessarily Cejdeals clients. I haven't signed them, and there's no pressure to sign them, even though I know the thought has entered their mind as to whether they want to really officially sign with our agency. But I'm more than happy to offer advice in a different perspective, which is a lot of times what people really need is an alternative perspective in order you have a problem and you think you have a solution as to how you want to solve it, and then you talk to somebody else and they completely shift that solution on its head. And that's what we would like to do for you too.
So, Carlos, you talked about like being in the community, being involved in the community a lot. Can you talk to me about, since starting this company, obviously you stay fit, but what has that looked like, just having different conversations? Can you talk about like stories that, whether you're just allowing someone, maybe you're giving insight on Cejdeals and what it is that you're trying to do? What has that, is there impacts that you've seen already?
Part of Cejdeals is I've always said it is with women, is for them to have an alternative source of revenue that isn't solely reliant on a job or a 9 to 5. And I think at least my take is that a lot of women are already on that path. Like they are
the mompreneurs and all.
They are, I feel like, more. This is a total generalization, but what I've seen is that a lot of them, if they have a job, they're doing something on the side, more so than the men. The men, they are more naturally inclined to be entrepreneurs and devote their full efforts to doing that thing that they want to do. But I don't meet as many that are doing the full-time job and the side hustle, which I think is interesting. I think that women are aware that there's going to be another space for them, that it's not necessarily served or fulfilled by a male-dominated workforce, and a lot of the corporate jobs continue to be male-dominated. And they understand that at some point in their lives, a lot of them just have great intuition. They understand that if they continue to rely on that male boss for their livelihoods in the long run, maybe that's not the smartest move. And as a result, a lot of them want to create an alternative source of income for themselves. Not only that, I feel like with women, and I've said this from the beginning, in terms of from an advertising standpoint, it makes more sense for them to have the big NIL deals. I just think their creativity is just, from a marketing standpoint, it's hard to compete with. At least the content that I've seen come from women is much greater and much higher in quality than and much more creative than what I've seen from the men. So I think it's a combination of just they want to do their thing. They want to do their own thing. They want to build their company. They want to use their creativity to the fullest. Can they really do it in your conventional job? No, probably they have to go and create something of their own, and that's what a lot of them are doing. And I think it aligns perfectly with what we want to do because that's the vision that we see for women. That's how we would like to empower them.
You said something that really, I want to highlight, and I would like to address honestly. It's like because that's one thing I've noticed too. Not even in just my generation. I don't know. I would like to hear your take if you're seeing it in your generation or maybe like all across the board. However, but I'm starting to notice that too because I was just at a bridal expo not too long ago, and mind you, my client that I was shooting for, she's like in her mid-30s, but she's permanent jewelry. Shout out GMP Forever Link, but she just hooked me in amazing. But I was at this bridal expo, but she works at the same company that I work for, where I do the podcast production for, and like everyone's out here, but more so to say, it's the women that decide to, outside of my 9 to 5, I'm gonna go start something on the side.
I've seen it more so than men. I've seen what this is again generalization. What I've seen it is a lot of the people that I encounter that are like, let's say, doing the law thing, men, they're really doing it. Part of it is because the law rarely gives you time to go do something else on the side. So they are fully committed to it. They can't possibly fathom doing anything else but law and committing to that firm and to that role that they have. Whereas a lot of the other a lot of the other roles that maybe are being fulfilled by women give them more flexibility. So it's one of those things where, well, geez, it's just a time management thing. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Growing up, man, I didn't see a lot of organized men growing up, man. It's kind of interesting, but yeah, I don't know. That's just one thing that struck me because, man, I built this company, stay in the community. I try to help a lot of these business owners, founders start producing content, taking advantage of these platforms. I mean, you can start your business today, start creating ads. I mean, and leverage this free social app right here on this phone, and so that's just, but yeah, I just thought. Come here and talk to you. Your focus is to empower, women athletes, influencers, help them secure these micro deals. I just thought that was something because I don't know, the more I see society, but that's another thing I would like to ask you is, I do see a lot of banks and things of that nature. The government, they're more marketing towards women and empowering them. And so I think right now is that time for them. To help them get these deals. But I don't know. I also think, going back to just the stereotype for men, I think one thing that my generation is having trouble with is just staying focused due to social media on the other hand. So it's like this double-edged sword. So while I'm seeing women continue to, outside of their job, continue to hustle and start a new business and one day, have that be their full sustaining what makes how they make a living, and then but on the other side, like growing up and then seeing men, my peers and stuff, but it's just like we're not getting those same opportunities. So I don't know what's your take on that because I think like mainstream news and things of that nature.
Well, yeah, it's just again. Those companies know exactly what they're doing, right?
There we go.
They
know.
They don't.
They know.
They don't spend money.
Come get your blue chew, man.
They don't spend money just because out of the goodness of their hearts. Like they understand that there's acquisitive power that women have now, more so than probably any other time, because a lot of them are very successful in their white collar jobs, rightfully so. A lot of them have. They've earned, their way there. They've have the education, they have the work experience. They've earned they've earned those checks. But not only that, like I said, there are other mediums where women are making their bucks. Right, social media happens to be one of them. whether it be on the light side or the dark side. We talked a little bit about the dark side, but there's definitely a light side on micro of influencing, which is more your conventional influencing, right? And I guess we didn't get into it too much because we know about that
Yeah,
side pretty well.
man.
It's been out there for a while. But the point is that the acquisitive power is there, so it makes sense for them to go after them. But an untapped market for many industries, an untapped market, because before a lot of the catering has been towards the male pockets, and I think it's just a smart move for them. That's all.
Man, it's an honor to have you on this podcast because you continue to like shift my perspective, open my mind because I like what you said there. Like because these guys, I mean, yeah, they're spinning, but they're not doing it out the kindness of their hearts. Like we got to think about those people that are in position of power to make these decisions, and they typically don't have a background such as myself, or they don't have that mindset to look for the gaps. You know what I mean? So to say. So it's just interesting, man. Like you continue to sharpen my mindset because here we are, contrary to them, we're one to empower women and help you guys leverage these platforms. Because I mean, they're here. And I mean, the sooner you understand, optimizing your skills and leveraging to increase and impact your bottom line. I mean, but yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to talk about because I even though we're here to empower women, we it's the balance. Going back to we talked about the WNBA and the NBA. How the analogy of Haagen Dazs and in France that store it doesn't generate any kind of revenue, but nonetheless, it's a great marketing opportunity for that business in a whole. And so, but yeah, it was one of those things I just wanted to talk about. But Carlos, can we talk about you more to say, because I know you did a lot of work back in California, and can you talk about just that experience and like how it allowed you? I mean, because obviously you left there for a certain reason, and you came back to South Florida, but even while you were there in California, this idea of Cejdeals, it
It
started in
it started there. Part of it is once you've worked in mergers and acquisitions, you learn to appreciate a certain deal flow. It's what I call it. Certain stages of the deal making process. And if you think about it, if you're working for these large and working in these large transactions, right? There's going to be a lot of overlap, even if the transaction is small. Like for example, like what we do, or what we aim to do with our clients. There's overlap. Not all of those skills, not all of those steps are going to translate perfectly over, but there's some similarity, enough similarity that it gives you competence, a certain level of competence to be able to do this. Um, in Probably the first one of the first steps in making a deal happen is finding a deal, right? It's what I call sourcing or procurement, and it's the same thing that we do with our clients here. We try to source opportunities with brands. We try to get brands interested in them. And then after that, it's a domino effect of things that ends up happening, leading to the close, which is where a deal is signed. And then, more importantly, one of the things that I learned out there is the integration piece is really important. It's not just about signing the deal, right? When you have a lot of investment bankers and lawyers involved, outside lawyers involved, they're just so focused to getting you to, oh, the deal was signed, that's it, everybody's happy. But that's not the case. There's an integration process that must happen after the deal is signed in order for a transaction to be truly successful. When you're working for a corporation, you're not just signing the deal and then, well, now I'm leaving the company. No, it's not how it works. You're still with the company. Now these new assets, this new workforce that has been acquired, now they are part of you. So now how do you integrate them into your current business model for the venture, for the transaction to be truly successful? So this is what I try to tell my clients too. This is not just about earning a commission. What we want is being able to build a solid enough brand so that there's a recurrent stream of work for you from that brand, so that you become a brand ambassador, so that you're fully integrated into the brand. So Z, those skills translate, that knowledge translates really well into, from what I would call, I guess, macro deals to micro deals, translates really well. I think in many ways it's made me very competent to do it, but by all means not an expert, because there's going to be nuances within the micro deal world that I still have to navigate. And I will learn those nuances, but that's only going to come with time. It's the same thing out there. Like, I had a lot of experience working on those deals, and I just need more deal flow in order to be able to really fine tune that expertise. Um, yeah, I mean, I miss working on that stuff to a certain extent, but I'm very comfortable here in my life in South Florida, and I'm very happy with the move that I've made, and overall, like, the niche that I've found for myself in the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, your experience, man, alone, it's a that's experience. I've dabbled with law per se, just with my father's situations, but just to connect with you and have a little more insight on that. But yeah, I say that I just want to learn more about your backstory. How did you figure out, or more so to say, like, what allowed you to know that you could do so? But like you said, that competence, it allowed, the competence builds confidence. And so, that's interesting to say. But, since coming down to South Florida, man, I mean, like, there is a huge Caribbean culture here.
Yeah.
I mean, since I got here, even at my job, we got a Dominican guy. My guy, he's always playing some Bad Bunny, Dominican Poppy. He's always
Yeah.
having a good time. But you talk about just like the culture here in South Florida, and just like, yeah, like, because that's one, I'm getting new here. I'm still,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But
Um,
it's really fast paced. And
I think on my drive to work, I hear, for the most part, it's Bad Bunny or some reggaeton or some type of old school Spanish songs. Well, we can talk about Bad Bunny. He's like a favorite of mine recently.
yeah,
Um, Especially like some of his work that this last album was really just on point. I don't know how he does it, but I feel like in many ways he just captures whatever a Latino male is thinking. I think he just captures perfectly in a song. And there's like so many songs that I'm like, that's exactly the sentiment, and the way he says it and the way he writes about it, and then the beats are just
on point.
on point. He. I don't know how. Like, I mean, some. I mean, we're talking about empowering females here. Some of the lyrics don't align to it.
Yeah,
I'll be completely honest with you,
man, like,
but it's a sentiment. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just like, it's just a feeling. It's a Latino swag thing that we have,
100%.
and it's part of the culture. It's part of our culture. A lot of it is about family too. A lot of it is about, he gets it. It's about, one of my favorite songs
What would that be?
is about, debí tirar más fotos, I should have taken more pictures. It's about leaving your homeland. It's about, like, sometimes the people that leave envy the people that didn't leave, because they got the chance to enjoy the moment a lot more. And then many times that's how I feel. Like, when I heard that song, it really resonated, just because I get it. Like, time is very precious, and you better enjoy it with the people that you have it, like, with the people that you enjoy the company of the most. You better spend that time with them, and you better really cherish it. Otherwise, the moment is gone. um and it's cool, like, to be able to come back to South Florida, because many times when I was in California, like, there were so many times I was out there and thinking, like, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But rarely does that happen, that you get a second shot at coming back to where you're from. And I'm glad it happened to me.
Beautiful. Yeah, man. I mean, the culture here, obviously the music, it's a lot of, I like the diversity here in South Florida, I will say. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
I would say, like, it's not like, New York is probably more of a
A
diverse
melting
place.
pot, right?
More of a melting pot. Here it's more Latin America.
Yeah.
I feel like in New York you can, and I'm not a huge New York person by any means. Like, I'm okay with it because I spent so much time in San Francisco, and San Francisco and New York are so, they're almost at the opposites to a certain extent.
Okay. I've never been to San Fran, actually.
Yeah, San Francisco's
I want to go though. Could you like what's the could you give me like comparison contrast?
Yeah, I feel like New York is a lot more intense. It's a lot more driven by the
Ah,
workplace culture, that corporate culture, whereas San Francisco is, you can have an outlet because there's a lot of, yeah, that's definitely the culture out there too. But then you have a lot of woods around you, so it's easy to just get lost in nature.
I see.
So I used to do that. I used to do
That's
that a
nice.
bit, just going into the woods, just getting lost in nature,
Yeah,
finding yourself, I don't know, in your thoughts, thinking about things. You can really, if you wanted to, out of San Francisco, if you go 20 miles north, you're kind of like, you're starting to get middle of nowhere, like woods.
now that's nice.
Yeah, you can't do that in New York,
Yeah,
in New York City at
yeah,
least.
yeah. I've been in New York, and it's just like you said, driven by the workplace. You know, what I mean, just too fast paced. But I was recently, like a week ago, I was just in Arizona. I was in Phoenix. I went to the Grand Canyon, but a lot of people tell me, well, my guy there, he told me he was like Arizona is kind of like just the Florida of the West. That was pretty interesting
It
because
is. I think honestly, I know New Yorkers love being in South Florida. In particular, Boca Raton is a ton of New Yorkers,
yeah,
but I see it as an indication that maybe they don't want to go to California, but they want to come here because of the weather. It's closer. Um, but if you were to ask me, does South Florida lean more New York or California? I think yeah, it leans more California. I think
I can see
it
that.
has slightly more laid back than New York, but not as laid back as California. Obviously,
Yeah, yeah. It still is like because since being out here, it's still this stuff is
there's still
fast here.
fast pace. Yeah,
Woo, it's
it's still fast
fast.
paced, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of New Yorkers down here who have brought that workplace culture here.
Hmm. Yeah, because I actually, recently I saw, a lot of New Yorkers, they're moving their companies down here, if I'm not mistaken. It's
A lot of people from California too have moved down here to one
economy's booming down here. I'm not
no
gonna lie
state
to you
income
guys.
tax, lower cost of living compared to New York or California or at least San Francisco. Uh, and then I feel in general like um, the state government tries to promote capitalism and
I
corporate
see that a
culture.
lot from Governor
Yeah,
DeSantis. Yeah, I see
so
that a lot.
that is also very attractive to those corporations, to those
Uh,
companies.
I understand that fully. I completely understand that. But yeah, yeah. Since being here in South Florida, connecting with you, you've definitely you've grown my mindset because really why the connection with you more so is really because what women have done to me was really challenged my mindset. I'm not gonna lie to you, Carlos. I had this toxic masculine, like, what I mean. But as I continue to, like, I recently 3 years ago I got into running like marathons. Half marathons is the
Oh,
most I've
I
done.
didn't know that.
13.1 miles.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so but the whole running thing for me, Carlos, is really just to do something that I don't want to do. Like I wake up yesterday, I run 4 miles. But continue to challenge yourself to do because that's what life is. But the more that I continue to do these waking up at like 6 a.m., going to run for 4 miles, and I can start to see that's now I'm starting to separate myself from everyone, peers, and like, nah, I'm sharp, man. I don't know. You're still hangover from last night, But and I bring this whole running marathons up was to really bring up. There was a young girl running this mini marathon with me, and she challenged my mindset. Cause here I am thinking like, oh, I'm a man. I didn't play football, some of the toughest sports, but I never really challenged myself to run a marathon at a certain time. I just came into it thinking that I would just dominate and execute because it's just running, so to say, right?
Yeah.
But as I'm running this half marathon, it's 13.1 miles, if I'm not mistaken. And I got done, but I was so upset. I wasn't upset when I got done, but in the moment, I was on like mile 8. And this young girl, I mean, she's just flying, man. She probably had like a 7-minute mile pace. I probably had like an 8 minute and 25 seconds per mile. Like I was running at my pace. And but just to see what women could potentially, I don't know, man, they're to the moon. Like I don't have that ego no more about myself or you know what I mean? So it's just continue to surround myself with women and they're challenging my mindset. Like I will never say women can't do this, that. Like I want to see y'all dunk the basketball. I want to see y'all kick the dang soccer ball out. You know what I mean? So I say that to say it's just like I love what we're doing. I think there's something here, and man, let's continue to keep building.
Well, yeah, I mean, uh, to be honest with you, like there's a lot of things that if let's say women's sports were to over the next 20 to 30 years were to really prevail, I think that'll have a massive social impact on the world. And I'm not just talking about gender equity. Um, a lot a lot of the causes that they champion are different from the causes that men traditionally champion. Part of it is what we've noticed is sustainability from an environmental and an economic standpoint. They are more likely to embrace campaigns that promote environmental protection, environmental welfare. Um, that is going to benefit all of us. And I think it's very easy to disregard it and say, like, there are many greater things in the world happening today. They are the ones that require the attention. Right now, geez, we're fighting a war, as we speak in the Middle East. Okay, we really have to be talking about environmental challenges. Well, the truth is that hopefully we'll always make space for it, because part of it is not we're talking about health, and part of the Cejdeals brand being trying to be the best that you can so you can best represent your clients. It also starts with protecting our environment. And I think if women have the platform to not only advertise with the big brands, they'll have the platform to champion some of these social
There
causes
we
that are
go.
also very important. We're talking about a lot of other social causes that are worthwhile fighting for. Our world is going to look very, very different because, again, the male mindset is focused on certain things, right? And in order to have a different perspective and to progress, we also need other players in the game. That's also what this is about.
With that being said, can you tell me maybe or an experience that you went through where I mean maybe a woman had a position of power and she was able to help you and maybe I don't know you have a lot of experience but can you talk to me about like just a time where you saw women or maybe just studies that you've seen how women contribute to progressing society in somewhat way because there's a lot of historical figures I could but is there one that sticks out to you per se?
Sadly, I've had a limited number of female bosses. Limited. There's a few, that I can pinpoint to. Um, I mean, working for them has been probably some of the best experience that I've had as a white collar professional. But what I've also noticed that in the workplace is that, especially in the corporate workplace, I have to manage expectations too. And so imagine once you work really hard to get to a certain place, and now the expectation is for you to deliver in that role. How much time is there for you to go and maybe support some of these other causes? It's difficult. There have been cases that I not necessarily to maybe women that I report to, but women that I've worked alongside as colleagues. A while ago, with the American Bar Association, I was involved with a project where I met probably some of the most talented and I guess socially progressive and just women that are completely involved in their community and trying to improve social causes. And I think that made a lasting impact on me, because I was more junior at that time, but just seeing the type of responsibilities that they would handle not only in the workplace, not only in the community, but also in the home, it made me rethink that maybe I'm not managing my time as well as as I should be in
Mm-hmm.
order to be more involved and in order to make an impact. So um, those are the times that I've really sat back and thought, wow, I need to be doing more. But I also don't. I can't point the finger to some women that rise through the corporate ladder, and then you don't see much out in terms of making a social impact, because it's very difficult to manage the time. It's very difficult to make everyone happy. Um, and it's something that, it really depends on who you work for in order to make it happen. I think that's part of the challenge, and at least in corporate culture, like we are very much committed to making sure that everything everything marches in accordance to profit. That makes it very difficult to make a social stance. So
Yeah, I mean, I had to ask because, like I said, since coming to South Florida, women. I mean, I started my own video production company, and a lot of the clients that I've been acquiring have been women. And not to say, I'm not targeting men or anything like that. It's just those are the ones that are working, and I surround myself with a lot of men, around my age and old enough to start businesses. However, but those are the ones that I see, like, you know, outside of their 9 to 5, they're willing to, pursue their whatever their dreams, so to say, and challenge themselves and how can I make this into a living. But I ask you this because really, the more that I grow up, the more I start to challenge my mind. I'm starting to see like how just women, what their role is to society, for us in general, and how they're just always in events, like you said, pushing certain environmental health programs and things of that nature. Um, I've seen in my lifetime, we all have mothers, you know what I mean? So just just giving them that power to do so, and also know that, there is no man figure, even though right now this is where society is, but how do we, challenge that perspective, that mindset? So, ever since coming down here, my manager, she's a woman, she's from Russia actually. And so it's just kind of interesting to see her point of view, her perspective. But had it been a Caucasian male, I don't think I would have gotten that opportunity.
oh, really?
There, and honestly, I think that's why I'm doing what it is that I'm doing, this podcasting thing, because I've been getting completely different opportunities from my peers that look like me, have my same story, but I think it's, because she even told me, she looked at my Instagram and it was like, I can just tell you're a good person, or I don't know. I hope that wasn't all that was qualified for me to get the job. I hope I'm good at producing podcasts as well. But nonetheless, you just talk about the impact, the roles that women play, and I even sometimes I do this theory. I challenge myself in my own head, and I'm like, man, what if we just all had like all male dominant, just dictatorship? If it was just we didn't have any women in power, like, because sometimes I feel like certain men, we just, or men in general, we kind of focus on ourselves, but then you bring the women into the picture of a room with just men, but then the women, she sees something completely different, a different perspective, or maybe that gap that that circle of men just completely missed. And so that I kind of look at it from that perspective, like, we need women more than we think and more than we like to give them credit for. You know what I mean? Yeah, we just gave them women's, in March, we gave them Women's Month, celebrating, recognizing them. But I think it's just that time, man. I think, like, the gender roles, it's time.
And well, yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of pushback, right? To in general, I think over the past few years is the most pushback that I've seen. I feel like we were progressing, and then politics too.
Plays a part.
Politics plays a huge part.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of pushback. There's Supreme Court rulings not that long ago, like actually from like the past 2 weeks,
Yes.
gonna make it more difficult for us to have a representative body of elected officials. there's a pushback. There are definitely people that don't share the sentiment that you and I feel, and I think it's a very legitimate sentiment. I'm sure, but I still can't wrap my head around it. Why there is such fear towards that progress? Why there is such um, resistance? As if you having an opportunity really takes away the opportunity of somebody else, but not really. If you're qualified and you've earned your spot at the table, but yet there's that reluctance. It still exists. It's still very prevalent in American society, and I don't think it's a sentiment that's gonna go away anytime soon.
Not at all. Not if we got these lights and cameras, we gonna talk about it. Cause I will. I will. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, because I mean, I always go back to my story. You know what I mean? And my father, just growing up, my father was just, I mean, that was the man to look up to. But then, I never, mom was just always taking care of everything. You know what I mean? And so, but like I was so attached to my father, I never really noticed the contributions because it was just always there. You talk about your home, the home was always there. I never had to worry about any of that thing because everything was just, and that allows us men to go and dominate whatever it is that we want to do. You know what I mean? And so, but yeah, I mean, the empowering women, the challenging society's norms, because I think this sentiment that we have, like I think we need to make it more aware because I think there's others out there, and like you said, just having those organisms understand what it is that we're trying to build, we're trying to scale, and we're building that community here.
I would say, in a nutshell, right? It's inclusivity. That's what it's about. Making sure that people that want to be a part of something are not left out because they lack resources. Um, at least I'm doing my best to provide those resources. I think you're doing your best to provide it, to give people a platform, a voice. That's that's what it's about. I mean, that's the larger issue at stake. Do I want to have a successful talent management agency where I have thousands of clients signed under my agency's name? Absolutely. Do I want to sign deals with brands here and there and be able to represent clients at major competitions across the world? Absolutely. But that doesn't happen unless I create an environment of inclusivity, a community where people feel like they belong, where people feel like they can ask questions, like they have a go to person without them hurting financially. And that's been part of the problem. And that's part of the problem with the legal industry, where everything revolves around making a buck and the billable hour. And it's a model that I said in our first podcast that has to go out the window because that's ultimately what ultimately ends up happening is a lot of people end up thinking, you know what, never mind, because I can't afford it, and that can't be the case anymore.
Not at all. Yeah, inclusivity. Yeah, and I mean, with that being said, Carlos, I want to ask you now, where do you see yourself in Cejdeals 5 years from now?
Such deals for 5 years from now, well, hopefully the most important thing is continue to have fun with it, meeting a lot more people than the people that I've met within the past year and a half. From there, having a community that relies on itself to build social media presence, and one where if I happen to be one of the main points of contact within that community to introduce themselves to other mediums, other platforms, brands, deal making, general knowledge about navigating social media or the deal making process, they'll come to me and reach out to me without any hesitation. But yeah, it would be nice to have, like, 5 years from now, like, let's say 50 or 60 clients signed. That would be great. I think that gives me a lot of legitimacy, to continue to grow the Instagram, our Instagram, because I feel like with every follower we have more legitimacy and it makes others more likely to join our cause. So for those of you who are listening out there, please feel free to follow us. We'd appreciate your support. Um, and then probably more than likely, being able to build some of the initial infrastructure to what's going to be next, which ideally would be able to share with a greater a greater audience, right? I mean, if it's only me advising the clients, that's never going to work. I don't have enough hours in the day. But being able to put in some model in place where anybody really can tap into the knowledge that I have at any time, any day of the week. So that would probably be like once you're hitting a certain X amount of clients and you're running out of time and capacity, to be able to build it into place so that is no longer an issue.
Oh, everyone, I am Bashir Musa, your host. We have Carlos Eduardo Julca here, founder of Cejdeals, and we are out.